Hey guys, it's Cam from Crafts and Tailored, and in this episode of What Is On My Wrist, we're talking Cartier, baby. Yeah, it's exclusive. It's called Cartier. You know what I'm saying? We're talking Cartier. It's gold. Gold means exclusive. Gold. Just kidding. So we're talking Cartier. Let me tell you something. We love Rolex. We love Omega. We like manly, like that guy. You know what I'm saying? Look at that guy. Do you see that chest hair? Like, that is manly. We like manly watches here because we're a men's vintage watch company. Just kidding. I've been really into vintage Cartier. I think the brand has a ton of awesome history. I think there are designs within Cartier that are just as timeless as, let's say, like a Sub or a Datejust or a Speedmaster or a Seamaster or whatever. One of the Cartiers that really kind of started my obsession with vintage Cartier and some of these more iconic designs are these tanks that were from the earlier part of the 1970s. They didn't make them for that long. It's referred to as like a tank jumbo or a jumbo tank. And basically it's a Cartier tank that is oversized and it's also automatic. So in the early part of the 1970s, Cartier re-released one of their most iconic designs, which is the Cartier Tank, and they came out with an automatic version. Common knowledge that the Cartier Tank is one of the most iconic watch designs of all time. I think that's a pretty accurate statement. Obviously, you know, there are a lot of other Cartier designs, but I think the Cartier Tank is definitely, out of everything, one of the most iconic. Andy Warhol wore one, Yves Saint Laurent wore one, Princess Diana wore one. Who else? Alain Delon wore one, the French actor. So many people have worn the Cartier Tank, and I think it is just as relevant today and now as it is back in basically 1919 when the first Cartier Tank was available. The Cartier Tank was originally designed in 1917 and ultimately became available to the general public in 1919. The design of the tank was inspired by the Renault FT-17 tank that was actually used by the French military in the First World War. There are some interesting anomalies that happened during the production run that ultimately make certain tanks more collectible than others. Tanks that are made in materials outside of yellow gold are very collectible. I was actually recently in London at Solmo. It's an incredible vintage watch shop at the Burlington Arcade, and they had a very early white gold tank. It was very small, and I fell in love with it. I would actually wear it. It's kind of a tiny watch, but I think it just looks incredible. But one of these anomalies is the tank automatic, or the automatic tank, which is the example that we're talking about here. So the Jumbo Tank Automatic is one of those kind of rare anomalies. It's become very collectible and there's not that many of them. It was only produced for a short period of time in the 1970s, and the larger cased tank wristwatches I think have made a lasting impression. So we see a lot of modern oversized tanks that are being worn today and in the current Cartier production lineup. The movement used for the automatic tanks is just a simple yet reliable ETA-based time-only movement. And the interesting thing from a design perspective is basically the design of the watch from this angle looks like a Cartier tank, or maybe one that's like slightly oversized, right? But then you flip that sucker, and basically what they did is they built like a little bubble on the caseback to accommodate that rotor. The other thing that is really interesting about this specific example is that this is what we call a Paris sign dial. So at the bottom 6 o'clock position, hold on, my eyeball's itching, I'm just gonna do that really quick. At the bottom, below the 6, what you'll see is Paris. It's not Swiss, it's not Swiss made, et cetera, et cetera. This is Paris. So Cartier, Paris, signed. And then the other really rad thing, and you might not be able to see this, but we'll put a little bit of a close-up, but in the 7, in the V of the VII of 7, okay, on that downward stroke of the V, it actually says Cartier. So that was one of the ways that Cartier was kind of like, this is a watch that is obviously replicated and has been forged a lot. But one of the ways that Cartier was basically one, denoting that the movement was automatic, and two, that it was a genuine article, was they basically spelled out Cartier in like the downward leg of the V in the 7, which I think is really cool. So very cool watch. Additionally, the condition of the watch is incredible. So in any case, original dial, original automatic watch, very rare, not often seen, and very wearable, which is the reason why I'm talking about it in this episode. Also wanted to provide you with a little backstory about Cartier and the Tank, because I'm seeing Tanks kind of pop up more, and I think that they're incredible watches, and I definitely have been chasing out vintage Cartier. Huge fan of this watch, and especially this one being Paris sign dial. It's enameled, and it's in a very original watch, which is just super cool. One thing to note is that these dials are, I think it's like a porcelain enamel or something like that. Don't quote me, but it's definitely enameled. So when you loop it and when you look at the numbers on the dial, it's kind of similar to like a Patek, where there's like a raised like enameling on the dial itself. But I think this porcelain enamel definitely does have a tendency to crack. So if you look at this watch kind of at an angle and in the light, there's like a little bit of like spidering that kind of appears, which is something that I actually like because it's an original dial. You'll see a lot of these watches, especially the automatics, that have a replaced dial. And one of the ways to tell if the dial's been replaced is that it's actually signed Swiss at the bottom and not Paris. So the fact that this retains its original dial, it's signed Paris, to me, I think this even sets this watch off even more, okay? One thing though to note, I hate the Cartier strap that comes on a Tank. The reason why I hate it is because it literally is just like an 18mm strap, and it's like 18 at the buckle. It kind of doesn't offer a depth or dimension with the strap. I don't know why, but this is a strap that's made by a gentleman by the name of Attila Azode. I'll provide a link in the description below, but he is an insane craftsman. Attila, I love your work. And I got this strap from somewhere and it fit this piece so nicely, but I think it totally changes the look of the watch because it tapers from like 18 or 19 down into 16. And so it adds a bit of dimension when it's on the wrist, which I think the normal Cartier strap doesn't provide. So if we look at that, it provides kind of like a little bit more of a depth and dimension. Cartier, if you're listening, you probably aren't because you're Cartier and I have like this little tiny YouTube channel. So yeah, whatever, I can go fuck myself, great. The case dimensions on this are 28 by 32. So it's 32 this way and 28 that way. I think it's, again, it's a jumbo. So I think it's proportionate, and I love the design details of this. So in any case, I just wanted to share it with you. It's an incredible piece. It's an original condition, and something a little bit different that I've really been into lately. The inspiration behind it came from a photo, for me personally, in my kind of obsession with this formatting of case and watch, came from a photo of Chet Baker, young Chet Baker. I listen to a lot of jazz and into jazz history and stuff. And he's sitting there with a trumpet and he's wearing, I think like a Longines or something like that. It's an early photo from like the 1950s, maybe late 1950s, early 1960s. And he's sitting there wearing this watch and he just looks so freaking cool. Like you look at that photo and you're like, fuck, that's an icon of style and taste and design. He's wearing like this white t-shirt, like these black Paris slacks, he's holding his trumpet, his hair fucking looks cool. And he has on like this simple rectangular watch and you're just like, that's cool. And that's what really kind of started my obsession for wanting to like hunt out these like square kind of thin dress watches. Provide a link in the description below to see this watch and to see other stuff. This one might end up staying in my collection for a little bit. I've been kind of hunting them. It is currently for sale on the website, but this is one that I'm kind of having a hard time with. I just have so many things in my collection that I'm trying to be very selective with what I bring in. And I also have some incredible, you know, square or rectangular watches in there already. So I'm trying not to fall in love with it, but I'm falling pretty hard. So in any case, be sure to check this out. Of course, like, comment, subscribe, and I will see you guys in the next one. Thanks for tuning in.